Today I'm reviewing
Psycho Goreman.
It was nice meeting you.
It would be nicer if you were dead.
Alright, bye.
The basic plot here is a brother and sister who stumble upon an ancient buried relic that turns out to be a prison, housing a powerful intergalactic warlord. They also find a gem that gives them total control over him.
Is this yours?
And hijinks ensue as they try to both keep him from murdering everything he comes across, and dealing with the forces that want to stuff him back in his cage.
Kill him!
Cool.
If that doesn't sound amazing to you, then we are fundamentally two very different people. But if it does, this might be the movie for you. It's definitely a throwback to old stuff I grew up watching, and I couldn't wait for this thing to come out. My expectations were through the roof, but I felt comfortable there because the writer-director, Steven Kostanski, is the guy who made The Void, which is an amazing movie, and one that felt like something that could have come out in the 80s or 90s, which is right up my alley. And this movie felt the same, but with a completely different tone. I can only really compare it to stuff like Space Invaders, Critters, maybe even the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies. Most prominently though, old canon films. If you've seen stuff like Beastmaster or Master of the Universe, that's what this movie feels like. Over-the-top, awesome fantasy movies that were willing to go a step further than big budget releases, and in the best way. They definitely aren't for everybody, but for my tastes, this is exactly what I'm always looking for. But it doesn't purely feel like a canon film, not completely. It almost feels like a canon film that knows it's a canon film. That's not a bad thing. It has all the crazy characters, makeup and costumes, the crazy set pieces, everything good about them. But in between, you kind of get that satirical comedy and the dialogue and the human characters. If anything, you'll probably actually hate most of these human characters. Particularly our main character, Mimi, who is basically a sociopath. She's entitled, selfish, and not too redeemable. So I did kind of find myself looking for someone to latch onto in the movie as my anchor, and never really found one. Just when you thought you did, it would lead to a scene where that character would do something shitty. The closest I got was her brother, but he was just a little too timid for me to fully jump on board with. But that is probably my only real negative. And it didn't bother me too much because it feels like an intentional direction and not bad writing. There isn't anything in this movie to take seriously. And even if it didn't always work, it's made up for tenfold for me. The acting was great. Despite hating her, the girl playing Mimi does it wonderfully. She's larger than life, basically spends the whole movie walking around like she's Kurt Russell in a John Carpenter movie, and it never gets old. The rest of the cast is great too. All kind of getting their moment to shine. Big shout out to the dad, who was probably my second favorite of the family unit. But the big star of this movie is really the makeup and effects. That's what dragged me in, and I was not disappointed. Even aside from just our main monster, Psycho Goreman, who looks awesome, we get all kinds of crazy costume characters. There's a robotic angel who looks like she's straight out of an anime. A Tin Man type dude with a mustache and a parrot on his shoulder. One guy just has a brain with eyes and a jar for a head, and that's barely scratching the surface. It's the best throwback to these old 80s fantasy action movies I've seen, and it's all done practically and looks amazing. The gore in this movie is on point too. There are heads exploding, people melting, and all kinds of other crazy shit. It's all practical and all top-notch stuff. There's naturally some CGI, mostly minimally in the fight scenes or when a character is using magic or something. And it's done with that dated 80s style, pink lasers and stuff, and it fits the aesthetic of the movie perfectly. So overall, this movie actually met my high expectations. I don't think it's for everybody, but if you like cheesy stuff, if you watched a lot of old canon films, or even grew up with kids movies like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and missed that practical makeup creature feature stuff, this movie is about as good as it gets. It's fun, the humor all hits for me, it never gets boring, and the effects are where the real money is at in this, and it nailed it. I can't wait to see what this director can do in the future. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing, and until next time.
Bye!